Hi guys. So just wanted to update you some exciting updates in my professional life that I wanted to share with you guys. And I was talking with some students yesterday. I teach at Ohio State. I teach as a adjunct faculty member there. And I was talking to some of the students who were interested in asking me about my career and how I got where I am today, working with some of the top athletes in the world, and also having a private practice, teaching, all the different things that I do. And so I was talking to these students about it, and it really reminded me how lucky I've been and how crazy my journey has been as a professional in the field of sports psychology, in the field of clinical psychology, in the field. And so today's video is just a little bit about updating you on what got me here and what this new update is that's going on that I'd love for you guys to be a part of. So a little bit about my journey. I guess we'll start there. So I was talking to the students and they said, how do you become a sports psychologist? I want to do what you do. I want to work with athletes. I want to work with teams. I want to work with colleges. I want to work with professional athletes. And one of the things I tell them is I accidentally got here. So it wasn't on purpose. I wish I was that smart in the beginning when I was an undergrad at the University of Iowa. I wish I was smart enough to have this all planned out, but luckily enough, I wasn't, because I think if I had planned it out, it wouldn't have worked this way. But how did I get here? Well, I've always been an athlete my whole life, so I've always played sports, played basketball. I've always been into martial arts, things like that. So I've always been an athlete. And then when I got into grad school, I thought I was going to get into marriage and counseling therapy. I thought that would be my thing. That would be my jam, right? Helping people, saving marriages, one marriage at a time. Well, when I got into grad school, it kind of turned into that's not really my jam. Now, I'll still do marriage counseling and marriage therapy from time to time, but it's really not one of my passions. I usually do it as a favor. I do it to help a current client out, things like that. So once I got to grad school, and that wasn't my jam, I had to figure out, what am I going to do? And I came across a book on sports psychology by accident. I'm a bibliophile. I love to read. I'm constantly looking for a new book to read and to go through, work my way through. So I found, whatever way I found it, I found a book on sports psychology. And I thought, wow, where was this stuff when I was an athlete, right? Where was this stuff when I was in high school? And where was this stuff when I needed it, on how to handle pressure, on how to really visualize and obtain the results you want in life and in your athletic career, and how to handle pressure and how to set goals and really get after them, all the stuff that goes along with the sports psychology world. And I became fascinated by it. And so I thought, maybe I can kind of create a career doing this, because this stuff is awesome and I like to use it in my own life anyway. So why not combine the two things in the world that I'm best at, right? Psychology and sports. My two professional interests there. Why not combine those two and start working with athletes? So that's where my love of working with athletes came from. And so it started evolving from there. So I started working with athletes during my practicums when I was in Chicago, finishing up my doctorate. I started working with athletes there. And then when I did my internship, which is your final year of training for your doctorate, I started working with athletes there too at the University of Iowa. And then I thought, well, might as well keep going with it. So I decided to do my dissertation on the marriages of professional baseball players, which was a really fun and interesting dissertation, by the way, that no one's ever going to really read because it's collecting dust in a library somewhere. And if you're the one that has read it, there's probably 7 people that have read it. I apologize because dissertations are monsters of their own making, and it probably is not the most interesting thing, but that was how I kind of started specializing even more in working with athletes and, kind of getting some skills that I could use later on in my work with athletes. And from there, I moved on to a postdoctoral fellowship at Ohio State, working with the teams and the athletes there, and also working part-time in the counseling center. That was a 1-year gig. And then after 1 year, the coaches and the athletes asked me to stay. It turned into a 2-year gig. Coaches and athletes told me I absolutely need to stay. We had a good synergy. And so that turned into 12 more years. So it turned out to be a 14-year gig working at The Ohio State University. And by the end there, I was the director of psychology services and working with 36 teams and 1,100 athletes, 200-something coaches. And what a privilege, what a joy, but it became a lot. It became a lot of work. So, because at that point I had also started a private practice on the side to see all my other athletes, my professional athletes, my Olympians from other sports, from other colleges, my high school athletes, my recreational athletes, and regular people with anxiety and depression and eating disorders and you name it. I had to see them somewhere, so I saw them in my private practice. So at that time, and this was going back 8 years now, that's when I decided to leave my work at Ohio State and go completely private. Right before that also, when was it? 11, 12 years ago. Hard to believe how fast it's been. How this is a crazy journey, right? But it's gone by pretty fast. But I also wrote the first edition with my co-author, Dr. Todd Case, who's also a friend of mine and a good colleague of mine, wrote Sports Psychology for Dummies, right? So that was when the first edition here came out, and that was 2011. And so since then, different versions come out, right? Different covers. So you got 2 different covers for this book, right? And here we are 12 years later, and this past year, we've decided to revise it. So the second edition is coming out, right? Along the way, it came out in other languages, right? So we've got it in Polish, okay, we've got it in Hungarian. Very cool stuff, and it's been so much fun. But this fall, Todd and I decided, like, we really need to update this book, and we really need to get a lot more information into it, because the world of sports psychology has changed. So this new update, I'm so excited to tell you guys that next week, on Wednesday, I believe it is, the 15th, or Tuesday or Wednesday next week, the new edition of Sports Psychology for Dummies is coming out. Okay, this book has probably 30-40% new material, brand new material. I wrote down kind of some stuff to keep in mind to update you guys on. This edition is going to be so much stronger than the first edition. Not that the first edition wasn't strong, but this edition is gonna be jam-packed with some cool information. We've got 7 new tools that you can put in your mental toolkit to work in the field of sports psychology. 7 new tools that you can use, mental tools that you can use. We have a whole section on hot topics in sports psychology, such as mental health issues with athletes. Fortunately, this is becoming less stigmatized, right? Seeking out the help of a licensed clinical sports psychologist. It's becoming cooler, and it's becoming more of a necessity with college age athletes and professional athletes. There used to be a big stigma around that, and due to a lot of popular athletes stepping out and saying, hey, I've had anxiety, or I've suffered from depression, or things like that. What you've seen with that is it's becoming destigmatized. And so we decided to include a whole chapter in there, an entire chapter on mental health issues and what to do, how you can help, how it might affect your performance. So we've added that chapter. We've added an entire chapter, and this is becoming an area of specialty for me also in other areas, but stress management. Managing stress. Stress is a killer, everyone. And so you need to learn to know how to manage it, especially if you're an athlete and you want to perform better. So we included a new chapter on stress management. We included a chapter because we get so many questions about this. How to get your skills from high school to the college level. How to make that leap from high school sports to collegiate sports. because we get a lot of parents coming in and asking us, how do you do that? Well, we're giving you a whole chapter on how to do that and how to do it the right way without losing your mind, without driving your son or daughter crazy along the way and ruining the experience for everyone. So that's another chapter. And then another chapter that I'm really excited about is we added a chapter in there on how to do what I do, how to be a sports psychologist. So we get asked that question all the time by students that I teach. I've taught at many universities, and they inevitably come up to me after class and they ask, and they say, how can I do what you do? It sounds so cool. Well, I'm telling you people, it is cool. There's a lot of variety in the people I work with. I work with really successful, strong, intelligent, kind, well-meaning people on a daily basis from all different walks of life, from all different countries of the world. And I love that, right? I love that. And as a sports psychologist, you get to do that. And so we've got a whole chapter, an entire chapter dedicated to all the steps you need to take, that you can take, to get where we, Todd, Kays, and myself, are at right now in our careers. And so I think that's going to be a really popular topic in this book. And then we also have a couple chapters on coaching today's athletes. Today's athletes have demands that athletes from 20 years ago, 30 years ago don't have, right? I remember there were no travel teams for basketball when I was little. There were no travel teams at age 6 for basketball when I was little. There are now. You know this if you're a parent. You know this. So there's a lot more pressure. You add in social media. You add in the cost of college being more expensive than it's ever been. And it's pretty crazy, the demands on today's athletes. And so we have an entire section there, how to coach today's athletes, how to deal with all these demands and still get the most out of your athlete, the most out of your teams. And then we also have an entire chapter dedicated to drills that you can use to help your team focus better, to help your team communicate better. You name it, we jammed it in there because that's what we like to do. Right, give you lots of information. So the new edition, this is my new update, and it's also an update for Dr. Kays himself too. But Sports Psychology for Dummies, the revised second edition is coming out. I like to think of it as an entirely new book, just because it was so different writing it and rewriting the material from last time. So there's a lot of new stuff in there. We're excited about it. So get out, go get your copy. We love to get your opinion on this new material that we packed in there. We love to hear what else we can add, what we can do. Well, I'm sure we'll revise it again in 4 or 5 years to stay up to date with all the new things going on in the field. But would love to have you part of the community. Would love to have you, if you don't have a copy, go get your copy, right? Go be one of the first ones to get it. You can find it on Amazon. But that's the latest Sports Psychology for Dummies, second edition, coming out anywhere in a store near you, or just go to Amazon if you're in your pajamas and you just want to have it delivered to your door via drone, okay? So thanks for sticking with me for this little 14-minute video, and I look forward to seeing what you guys think of a brand new edition of the book.